may be in the cosmos, the universe, the galaxy, anywhere in creation. This is Rocken Larry Locken with Pleiadian Express Productions. And it's been a long 5 years since I've been on the air with a guest. I've done a couple solo talks, but I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time in 5 years, but I'm really excited for what we've got going on tonight. I'd like to introduce everybody to Colorado's own Denise Leigh. Denise is a fascinating lady I got to know the last couple of months in some of the Facebook groups. And she's just really warm-hearted, warm-spirited, brilliant. And I'm going to quit rambling. So on and on without further ado. Denise, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm a little nervous, actually. You know, I usually have that opening spiel down to a T, but yeah, I'm a little nervous, but I'm really looking forward to hearing your story about how you awakened and how you've guided and you've healed other people, and just take the conversation where it's going to go, you know, just free flow it. Yeah. So what's on your mind?
I don't know. I'm pretty high right now. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see, where do I start? Want me to just start from the beginning?
Yes.
All right, let's see. I'll just roughly do a quick thing about childhood. You know, the karmic family I was born into, was pretty, you know, ground into the 3D matrix, and a lot of abuse, a lot of addiction. I have since I don't really speak to them. Because I understand. I mean, I understand that we're all here to learn something, and I never really felt supported by them because I was born into a family that I guess my mom was the oldest of 5, and I'm just going to quickly do this. She was the oldest of 5, and she had a totally different dad because my grandfather was still in the war and my grandmother had relations with somebody else. And so my whole life, what I remember hearing was, you know, my mother's the milkman's kid. And we always thought and come to find out, oh no, we have 0 Irish in us. We're Swedish and all these things as far as earthbound. I mean, I've got lineage all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah.
I mean, I mainly come from, I'm part of the Emerald Order. So very ancient soul, very ancient soul.
Yeah, I sense that in you. I do. I sense that in you, you know, with your little green hearts you leave in comments. I just feel that vibe from you. I thought that, but I didn't know that for sure.
Yeah, I've been it for a long time. I knew from beginning, right when I woke up, this was 2016, 2017. I think what triggered it for me was I had, because I don't associate with that person anymore. The sister I was born into this world with was very abusive. And, I think that was, for me, that was my biggest thing, because my mom wasn't. My mom is still in my life and the only person really in my life that I speak to anymore. And that's because she's, you know, she had to be higher vibrational to be able to bring me into this world. And I understand that about all of them. So
yeah, no, exactly. And you know, there's a common theme here, what you're saying. I mean, everybody's story is a little bit different, but it seems like a lot of us that have awakened starseeds, light workers, it seems like we've had childhoods like that with families like that. I mean, our stories are all 80% similar. It's really, you know, bizarre.
It's really interesting because we all have little differences, and because we have our own journeys, of course, and we're all unique and original. Yeah, a lot of similarities. And one of the things I was going to touch on is, I remember my mom always saying, "God, you've had such a hard life," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I chose these experiences. I chose these lessons. I'm okay with it. I see my life as being friggin' awesome. I love my life. I love the things I've gone through to get here. I love everything I had to get to this point. I think it's friggin' great."
Oh, yeah. So, how did she take it, though, just out of curiosity? Like, when you mention that to her like that, what is her kind of reaction when you say you chose this? Is she just like, you know, yeah, whatever, kind of?
It has taken my mom my mom, bless her heart, she's 78 years old, you know, baby boomer. The era, you know, the era of we have to work to survive, and we have to survive, and we have to feed our children, you know, all these things. And you know, I think, oh, sorry, my grandma just came in. My grandma's like, well, tell them about me.
Absolutely.
She's like,
it's a family affair.
It is. Okay. And so grandma, in the honor of my grandma was one of my biggest supporters through my life. She always told me she was a healer. She always read the Bible to me. I personally wasn't into it.
Yeah.
I just never got into that. And I understand now why, because that was all man-made. That was all man-made. I know some of it has divine channeling in it. I understand that. A lot of it was from man.
Bits and pieces of it. Books have been taken out of it. Reincarnation mentions of that have been taken out. I mean, it's been altered, screwed with. And other than that, it's a book full of riddles, fables, and destruction. And yes, you got to really read the fine print to see the true history in some of it. Yeah, I get you, man. I get you totally.
And I'm not going to touch on this too much, but the people who worship Yahweh, Jehovah, that's just not who our creator is. That's just another, in my mind, they were man just like we were. And period.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, so that's all I'm going to say about that. And, you know, I'm not trying to put feathers, but it's going to trigger some.
You could get me going on it all night, sister. Yeah, no, they were extraterrestrial, you know, humans. You're right. They weren't. No, yeah, I'm going to let you go on because I could go off on that too all night.
We'll go off on this on another one. We could talk about this all night. But yeah, so my grandma was my biggest supporter, and my mom, though, okay, thank you, grandma. She was my biggest supporter, and she always told me, you're a healer, you have divine gifts, and I just never understood it back when I was 14 years old. I know I came in awake. I understand I came in awake, but the stuff that was programmed into me was programmed at a very young age, and the trauma I experienced from my mother's womb just didn't allow me to flourish at that younger space. So it took me till 2016, 27. I mean, I know along the way, I empathically always felt people, and looking back on things, I was like, oh my God, I was right. I knew I was right about that. You know, I mean, those things come up, and I didn't trust myself. It's taken me up till recently to really, truly start trusting myself. Or I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't trust myself. So
no, I bet that took a while for you. It does. It takes people a while sometimes to, you know, I've met a lot of starseeds. It takes them a little while to get to that point, you know. It's confusing. It can be frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and when you have people in your life always doubting you and telling you that's not how things are, you're like, oh, really? Because that's how they are for me. You know, I don't get that. So I always believed what everybody told me, and I blindly believed it. And no longer do I do that. But my mom, we'll go back to my mom real quickly. And she's 78 years old, baby boomer. Yeah, it's taken her up until recently. She doesn't really understand, I guess, but she understands that I have a huge passion for it. And I have done so many things to change my life for the better, addiction being one of the biggest ones that I've struggled with through this lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's typical, especially starseeds our age. Addiction is, you know, it's pretty common that a lot of us went through that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also saw in myself and through meditation and things, how it has been something that's been with me lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that is why it's been so hard to get through. However, I have made it. I know I have, because I'm nobody. I am somebody. I'm nothing like to be, and I have overcome so many things. At one point, I wasn't giving myself the credit, you know, or the acknowledgement that, Denise, you're doing it. You know, you're doing it. You're actually doing it. Don't look down on yourself. Don't get mad at yourself. You're doing it. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, and I know that's.
Yeah, it's quite a realization to come to that, though. You know, when you realize you are something, you know, you can think it, but then knowing it's a whole nother thing now.
Yes. Yeah, embodying it is what, yeah. And I understood it, but I didn't embody it. And
Right.
I believe I do now. I know I do now because I feel it all around me and it's in me. It's not around. I mean, you know what I mean.
I
Um,
do. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. But no, my mom's, she is a supporter, and I know she's coming around because she sees the people that support me, through like Facebook and stuff, and she just knows that, she sees it, the huge change, the bigger picture of how I've changed and the direction I'm going, whether she understands it or not. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there one way or another, and I'm grateful to have her support. And she's growing right along with me, though. I see it. I see how, even like she goes, I just can't grasp the eternal thing. And I'm like, okay, that's all right. You don't have to right now. She goes, my little mind. And I keep explaining to her, don't use your mind, use your heart. Just go to your heart and you'll understand these things a little better, and if you're not ready to do it, then you're not. Because I know until you're ready, these things aren't going to make sense. They're not going to jive with you. Just all these things. It has to be, and divine timing is so a thing. I just love divine timing, the word divine timing, or the whole thing about divine timing, because it's so true. Even
Yeah.
tonight before this, I had a reading, and it is divine timing, because it's what I knew all this stuff, but hearing it from others, I think, for me, just solidifies things. And I sometimes you need to hear it from another source, and just to really grasp the fact that you're onto something. You're doing what you're exactly where you're meant to be. And I don't care who you are, where you are in this world. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Period. Um,
Yeah. It seems like more people are coming around though versus like now versus 10 years ago. Like, I don't know about your scenario with your mom, but I've seen a lot of scenarios like that where 10 years ago, it was really just like they didn't want to hear anything about it at all and they thought you were strange. And it seems like I've ran into people where their families are slowly coming around, some of them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, and
Yeah.
even yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I still have a few connections from my family that
Mhm.
follow what they don't comment, except one has recently, and I always had a connection with her, so I kind of I understand why she's connecting with me more, because she's not family. She's married into the family, and
Right.
she's a very special individual, and I will always love her. I always loved her.
It's
So
funny you say that. I kind of know the person you're kind of talking about. They're kind of on the brink. They're still in the 3D, but in their mind, they know what you're doing is like, they know it's legit.
yeah,
They just have a little bit of self doubt still left in them because they're living in a 3D world around 3D people. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if she's married or anything, but her husband might be still totally wrapped up in 3D and not open to, seeing more than 3/10 of the spectrum. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
No, I think yeah, for him, I think he was actually, though, one of my buddies growing through life, and it was because we were both drug addicts. I connected with my family that way through addiction. The karmic ways, the trauma bonds. We
Oh,
we all
yeah. I've caught that episode a few times, believe me.
Yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed his company, though. He had that, just that dark sense of humor, like I always have, and
Mhm. That
it
Star
just is
Seeds
what it is.
humor. Yep.
So, but I mean, I don't know. Up to this point, I am not really searching anymore. I know that my soul family is all kind of rallying around me. I can feel it. I know pillars of my soul family are truly a couple of people, Francesca, David,
Yep.
just they're amazing people.
Oh,
I early on in my awakening, and literally maybe 2018 is when I hooked up with David. Not hooked up like that. When I connected to him, no. And I think we both kind of taught each other things at that point. And then he just took off, and I was still dealing with stuff from life, and dealing with my own
right.
addiction and things. And, and then I look now I listen to their stories, and I'm like, well, they knew they were awake when they were young. It took me till I was 48 years, whatever.
But you were still part of the same class, though. Okay? So I awakened in 2010. There was some that came in 14, and then it was about from 2017 or 2016 till about the change of the decade. It was really stale, and there was nothing new coming out. Nobody had anything to say. We were waiting for people like you and Francesca and David to come along. And then, I kind of watched David at afar for a couple of years when I was kind of not really, I was living a little bit of 3D life at the time, busy with stuff, still, doing my meditation and talking to my guides. And I saw David come along and I thought, man, this kid, okay, I call him a kid. He looks a lot younger than 6 years younger than me. But I saw this kid come along. Yeah, and I said, man, this kid may be onto something. Okay. So I slowly watched him and I said, we'll see where it goes. And then, he just all of a sudden, bam, he blew up. And then, people like Jessica came along and you came along, and see, even though you guys are different ages, you guys are part of that same class that came along in the late part of the last decade. Whereas in the early part, we had one in 2010, early 11, and then in 14. I mean, this is not just speculation. This is, I've seen enough examples, enough of a pool of examples to back up, I think, what I'm saying and getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're grateful you guys came in. We're grateful because it was stale, girl, for a few years, really.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that because when I first was waking up, I was literally searching for, I connected to Cryon and Bashar right off.
Me too. Cryon was my man. Bashar was like I loved Cryon. I loved Bashar too, but I thought Cryon was like Bashar was going to be one day, I guess.
Yeah. The funny thing is my grandma used to actually follow Cryon. I remember her talking about Lee Carroll and Cryon, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Grandma. I don't get it. And I remember when I woke up, she's like, she is who guided me to him. She's like, this is who I was talking. Oh, okay. And I remember Saint Germain coming in right away too. So he was always right there. Saint Germain right off.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, was my guy. But I still get chills when I hear Lee Carroll say, "This is Cryon from Magnetic Service." I still get.
Oh my God. I got chills just now. You saying it. Yes, I love him. Oh, yeah. He's amazing. And Bashar, I know, there's a little bit of an agenda there, so I don't follow it quite as much anymore. But Sirius is, I'm part of Sirian. That's where my dragon is from.
Yeah, I can tell.
From the Emerald Order. He's from the Emerald Order, but that's my Syrian dragon, and he upgraded, so he's an awesome dragon. He's always right there.
Syrian energy in you. I've been talking about them. That's going to be one of my next big solo talks, though, about the Syrian Empire and how they've influenced like all the indigenous cultures and ancient civilizations here. But I want to touch on the fact that it was different Syrian tribes, and they all had different agendas. And before the Syrians ascended and became who they are and part of the, the light galactic forces, they warred with each other. They had a big civil war before the light finally went out there, and bloody wars with Orion. We have quite a past in our little galaxy here.
Yeah, we do. And I love that Star Wars. That's the one thing. When I was a kid, I remember Star Wars coming out, and that was, oh my God, my soul was just like, I was like, no. This is it, because I not knowing then I was there. I didn't know it then, but
No, you were there. It was basically talking about, two different wars. The Orion-Lyrian War of 1 billion years ago, and the Lyrians had to flee there and go colonize the Pleiades, which most Pleiadians are Lyrians, actually. And the Syrian Orions had a war, but that movie, that first one in 77, was channeled to George Lucas. I'm sure of it.
Oh no, it was absolutely. Yeah, I think he knew about things like the Emerald Tablets, and there's connections there. There's Thoth and all that. I mean, that's another. I'm very connected to Egypt and all that stuff. So pyramids are a big thing. I'm a gatekeeper. That's
interesting. That's fascinating. You say that because that was the one incarnation I remember I didn't come down here for, was Egypt. So it's always cool to talk to somebody that was here during that time. I mean, I was here through Atlantis and their big nuclear war that caused the big deluge and shit, the floods. But yeah, Egypt. Yeah, so yeah, it's cool because I don't know really a lot about Egypt. You know what I mean? That wasn't kind of my thing, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was finished. So I'm sorry. We're walking all over each other. I'm rusty as hell at this.
I'm just so excited. It's okay. No, I was going to say, when I first woke up, I got shown how they're like, you're an ancient soul, and let me show you. And so they showed me, and I mean, I was even watching when the Earth was not even formed yet. So I was there knowing I was going to come here for the long haul, and I literally was there watching it, maybe even possibly helping create it. What I'm being told right now. You were, yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, I mean, I helped create this planet, you know, and no, because I mean, I have Indian, Native American, I want to say. I don't want to call them Indians because that's not what we were. I have many memories of lifetimes here. Just tons. Like I don't even know where to begin, but Egypt being one of them. I know there's connections to Lemuria and Atlantis. I think more Atlantis. I could be a little off on that, but I just felt more connected to Atlantis, I think, once I found out about all of it. So, you know, I've been here for the long haul. And I'm going to be. This is my home. This is my home right now.
Times that you remember, like, because I'll just say this, the only time I really only remember being here for Atlantis and Lemuria, and it was part of a team to kind of watch over that war. We had our base set up on Mars to watch what was going on between those two. So I've lived in a lot of universes, but I haven't had many here on Earth. Have you had, like, do you remember lifetimes of like any kind of modern era within, say, the last, I don't know, several hundred years? Or, I mean, how does that go for you as far as?
I want to say maybe when Greece comes up, I have a Greece connection. I want to say it's more modern. Possibly. I'm not getting anything in a second, but that one feels like technology, more technology based. I know we've done this so many times on this actual, what we're trying to do now to ascend. We've done this more than once. You know, we've done this quite a bit.
That's why when you mentioned the technology, if you were around when there was high technology somewhere, that could have been a lifetime a billion years ago. I mean, there was technology several different times, I believe, in incarnations of Earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What we got now. So it's
what we have now is nothing what we've had.
No. Hell no.
Yeah, this is peanuts.
You're talking about 150-foot crystals, like 12 of them around the planet that powered the whole grid, you know, the whole Earth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you know, people are like, oh, Atlantis was this here in this space or that space. No, the whole Earth. It was everything. It was one huge civilization, and things didn't look anything like they do now. You know, things have shifted, and they will continue to shift, and that's just how it works.
You know what I got out of that? And I had this come to me in 2011. And then this guy 2 weeks later on YouTube said the same thing. I just dropped my phone. But anyway, he had the same channeling come to him and he put it on YouTube. So when you're talking about Atlantis having the whole planet, what I remember is half the planet Atlantis had, maybe about 60% of it. The other part of it was Lemuria in this one incarnation. There was no land where the U.S. is right now, except for on our coast. Now, where our west coast is and our east coast is, our west coast was like the east coast of Lemuria, and our east coast was like the west coast of Atlantis, which stretched through, starting in Atlanta, over to Europe. Okay, so, and then we had a big nuclear exchange, and I think that's today why the outback is the way it is in Australia, is because that was the western end of Lemuria, and Atlantis bombed the hell out of it. So Hawaii's like one of the only remaining staples of Lemuria. And that back in those days, Hawaii was way up in the mountain. You know, it was way up in elevation.
It was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the higher you went, it was colder and colder. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. But I even believe that like Bermuda Triangle, it's all those crystals on the bottom of the seafloor. That's what's causing it. You know?
I've never heard it put that way. That's riveting. No, what you just said, that's riveting. That is probably what it is. I mean, that makes the most sense in just 2 words that I've ever heard as to why the Bermuda Triangle is what it is.
Yeah, that is because it's a portal basically because of all those crystals are down there, and everything's going to come to light here very soon. You know, I mean, the disclosure, everything's upon us. Just all that stuff. You know, everything's coming like very soon. Sooner to me, it's going to be sooner than later. And I've had contact for years, and half the time I didn't even. Like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Just kind of, yeah. I mean, it was there the whole time, but you just kind of like,
Yeah, you weren't in tune with it yet, and the more in tune you are with these things, and the more things are going to come to light. And I don't know. I think we're all amazing. I just who we are and what we all bring to the table, and even the people that are still asleep, they have a purpose, and they're here to do what they're here to do. And
well, the more our helixes were disconnected, these 2 helixes with 12 strands each, and the more they get connected in our brain, the more of the brain we use, that junk part of the brain, they say is junk, but it's not. And it gets to the point where you're going to start to be able to remember everything like at once from past lives, from all the parallel realities you're living in, right? But it doesn't happen right away because it would drive us crazy to all of a sudden have all that knowledge right at once. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then we wake up at the point we're all just one. We wake up, we're just God. We're all God, and we're just parts of Him in our own body. It's really strange, It's cool though.
It is awesome. I love it. The more, like, every time I find something new out, I'm like, oh, this is like, I didn't even realize that I knew it, but it's like, it's almost like a memory. It's not, or a remembrance. It's not I didn't know that. It's a remembrance, I mean, and your soul just lights up and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. Yeah. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on here. Energy.
There's a whole hell of a lot going on. I mean, time is speeding up. I know you mentioned that on one of your posts on your timeline on Facebook. And, I've been beating that drum for a long time too, because about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, a couple of years after I'd awoken, I heard a couple scientists talking that they were trying to explain this, and it's hard for me to articulate, but it's something like this. A minute now, like 60 seconds is a minute, but really in the reality of how time is sped up because the planet is kind of ascending, it takes about 50 seconds. Has it like even going back to the late 90s compared to like the early part of last decade, it'd be like a minute only really takes 50 seconds of time, but we're still counting down 60 seconds of time for a minute. Does that make any sense at all? Maybe I need to.
No, yes, absolutely, because I don't know if you okay, this is something that I kind of had already felt, and then Terrence Howard came out about how our math and everything has been skewed to fit the the narrative of the Matrix, and so everything isn't as it seems. Like I always wondered why math was so hard for me, and I think that has a lot to do with it because it just never resonated with me, and the way they taught it, the way it worked, the way the number, the 1 times 1 equals 1. What is that? Things like that. And because to me, 1 times 1, it needs to multiply. Isn't that what it is? Multiply. So it shouldn't it be 2. And so Terrence Howard has explained all that, and I don't totally understand. But it makes sense in the whole grand scheme of things that what we've been working with this whole time, the 12, the minutes on the clock, everything has been programmed. Period.
Absolutely. It's too simple for us to understand. But like I had a cousin who was about my age and totally rooted in 3D, very closed-minded. Oh, he was great at math. But it's like people like us, little simple things like that, they're too simple for us to understand. And people don't understand that. And so it really makes for a really perplexing situation. I mean, you're right. Nothing is as it seems. I mean, up is down, down is up, and, and we really don't know with this matrix. I mean, listen, I was listening to this guy the other night. And I used to listen to him a long time ago, Robert Morningsky, for some research I was doing. And he was talking about how when you die, he said, I want you to consider this. When you die, I don't want you to walk towards the light. If you see family members, they're not really family members. I want you to turn around and go the other way and take your place out into the stars. And he beat that drum for years and years. And, and I'm not saying that I would believe that or even that that's what happened, but it's very, it's interesting.
Phone shutting down. Oh, crap.
What? Come back in. If you got your phone shutting down, you can come back in. I can blabber away for a couple of minutes. I'm good at doing commercials. Okay. Well, I think Denise is regathering herself, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's program was brought to you. Tonight's program, I'm so rusty. I'm usually not this all over the place. You can listen to my hundreds of other shows, and sometimes I'm a little crazy, but not like this. Is brought to you by Pleiadian Express Productions. Pleiadian Express Productions is a YouTube channel as well as a Facebook page that's been around since 2014. Wait a minute, no, 2012, I think. And we have a smaller channel called the Pleiadian Light Grid Project that we simulcast on sometimes. That's kind of a channel that I used to do. I've got a lot of, I do channelings on there, but I've also done a lot of weird starseed humor over the years. Like my two-part series of the Insomniac Stalker from the Pleiades. It was a Pleiadian who came down here, and he would overhear people in town having sleep issues, and he'd start stalking people with insomnia and getting angry. That was funny, but can't blame me for that. Those two, the Pleiadians, they drove me right to both of them. I didn't even know what I was doing when I recorded the two of them. One's like 2 minutes long, one's 5 minutes long. And look, man, this guy loved them. This one guy, he even offered me, after a year of begging me, he offered me $100 to do a third one. And I'm like, man, I could use the money, but I can't do it. Nothing comes to me. That was through them, not me. That was their sense of humor. Yeah. So, and also I did a series on the tobacco gods, worshiping the nicotine gods that brought us all this addiction to tobacco, just all kinds of wacky Pleiadian type of out there humor. I don't know that. And yeah, I think that was about, oh no, I was on this kick for a while where I was taking all these classic rock and roll songs from 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I was singing them in a country voice, and promoting them and thinking that I sounded good, but I did, I was intentionally sounding like shit. So, and, a lot of my channelings are on there too that I've done with the Arcturian. I've got a smaller channel that's only got about 4 shows on it, and 3 of them are channels that I've done through the Arcturians and the 13th dimension, but mainly my channels come through these orbs that are in the 7th dimension. And the sky beings that are in the 8th dimension, those beings that you see in the clouds that smile at you, and the crystal cities, that's 8th dimensional reality up in there. Now when you're talking about 9th dimensional reality, you'll only see those kind of beings at night in their Merkabas posing as stars. And the 10th dimensional ones will be in some kind of ship or whatnot. Now you start getting into the 11th, 12th, and 13th dimension. You're talking about angelic Arcturian realms when you get into the 11th. And you can always tell a soul that, and some of them fluctuate. David Starr is a good example. David, because of what he does, David fluctuates between about the 9th and 10th of the highest star levels and into that 11th dimensional role. Although he can go up and access those other 2 when he needs to, and could full time if he wanted to, but that's not what he's, that's not his mission right now. So, and I know out of the 200, well, I've talked to probably several thousand star seeds, but out of the 200, I've really probably gotten to know good. I've only known about 3 that were at that highest possible dimension in Earth before completely ascending and not being here. I've only known 3 ever. That's it. They were all ladies. I'm not going to say who they are. You know, 2 of them are 50, one of them's 53. So, you know, they're in that same era. But yeah. Okay, so we're still on the air. My cat is meowing right now. You know, this is like 3D things that get in the way. My cat is weird. During the winter, hey, he's out like a light. It rains all the time here. I'm on the Oregon coast. I don't know where everybody's at that may hear this. I know that Denise is in Colorado, in Aurora. I'm not sure how far that is from Denver. I don't know. I've never been to Colorado. I just haven't been there before. But yeah, here in Oregon, like I said, it rains all winter long sometimes, and the cat just sleeps all winter long. But then come spring, he gets crazy, and man, he'll run in one door and he'll dart out the other. And, you know, he really starts tripping during spring. Spring fever is a reality. You know, it does happen. But, you know, we were talking about dimensions and stuff like that, right? So I did a show. If you scroll down on the channel a little bit, it's called Higher Dimensions and Realities. What I do is I go into talking about basically the 4th through the 13th dimension. Oh, I got to say about those 3 people that I know that are solidly in the 13th dimension. One of them, yes, one of them is fluctuating into the 14th dimension. There is one of them that is. Okay, so I talked about the 4th dimension, you know, being the last kind of real physical body dimension, the one above us. And the difference is in the 4th dimension is that you live more now moment living, right? That's basically the only difference. It's more now moment thinking living. Yes, they still need a clock to use to do what they need to do, right? They're still in that mode, but they're more in the now moment in the way they live. Now you start getting into the 5th dimension. Okay, then it starts getting liquidy. I mean, the only thing that you could ever really compare to it, if you've never, like, if you're not into our community, is, you know, if somebody's taken a hit of really good old school LSD, and I wouldn't recommend that, then that's kind of like living in the 5th dimension. The air gets liquidy. The 5th dimension is the first dimension where you will see entities from elsewhere. Now, in the 5th dimension, really mainly you'll only see them, okay? You don't really have like telepathic contact with them yet in the 5th, maybe a little, but not much. Now you start getting into the 6th dimension. This is where things change. Okay. 6th dimensional light entities are usually like outline bodies, but they're clear. They're like clear. They're like Larkma. You ever heard of the collective Larkma? I've channeled them before. There's a couple online that's been channeling them for like, I don't know, over 15 years, you know. And they happen to live not too far from me in Ashland, Oregon. They have a house there and in Shasta. But okay, so they're like outlined, like clear beings, and sometimes you can see them float by. Sometimes you just catch them out of the corner of your eye. Now, they were my first guides. Okay, and what I would see is their clear faces. They had smiley little Pleiadian faces. They were clear, and they floated by and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd ask them to, you know, my wife at the time didn't believe it. We were in bed, and they'd be flying around smiling at me. And I'd say, hey, why don't you guys buzz by her hair and make her jump? And they did. And then I'd say, hey, just do it again. And they did. So, but they were with me just a little while. Then it went right into, these were my main ones for the longest time. These orbs out of the 7th dimension. Okay. They were mainly collectives from the Pleiades, and, you know, from the Pleiades homeland, which is the Lyran star system. Okay. So you had Lyran souls and Pleiadian souls that were on there. And they were the same, but they were different in the fact that the Pleiadian ones came from the Pleiades, the Lyran ones came from Lyra, you know, just like that. But the reason that they are humans like us in their truest form, but the reason that they come down in orbs like that is because their bodies cannot handle the density here down on Earth. It's too, you know, thick, it's too heavy. So they will come down in orbs, or at least the ones I talked to and connected with telepathically. And you might see like anywhere from, there's never usually just one on an orb, but sometimes there's only 4 to 6 generally, 4 to 6 of them on there. And then some of the bigger orbs, there's even more than that. And the orbs were in all kinds of different colors. They were blue, they were green, they were pink, they were gold, they were silver, you know, white. Well, not really white, kind of a, you know, maybe a little, but all those other colors. And then you also had ones that were a beautiful, perfect rainbow color. It just depends, you know, on what that collective decided on their favorite color was. It's that simple. They're a lot like us. They have, you know, they have likes like that. They have interests, you know, so, and then when you start dealing with eighth dimensional beings, they're kind of like it's that the same sixth and same seventh dimension smiley type faces, but these ones are like in the clouds and up in the sky. And man, if you're connected to those, man, you can look up on any cloudy day and see a ton of faces smiling at you. And it's not your eyes playing tricks on you. It's the real deal. Those are eighth dimensional beings, right? And they speak telepathically to you. Pleiadian, you don't hear, if you hear voices in your head, you're going crazy. Although they have broke character with me a couple times, and I did hear their voice come through in a very like beautiful kind of a harmonic sound. This one up in the clouds one time was looking at me and he's all, "I love you," but it was real harmonic. Usually they would just smile and, you know, move around. And with the orbs though, I'd have conversations on end with them, you know, ask them about everything, ask them stupid questions like before football season one year, who's going to win the Super Bowl. And they told me, they told me, look, we deal in parallel realities, we deal in endless dimensions. And so everybody's going to win the Super Bowl in our world. And they're right, because they don't, you know, they're not going to give you the winning lottery numbers or anything like that. They don't deal with that. Everything is a parallel reality to them. It's endless, right? And no matter what they can give you, they can give you advice and innate possibilities of what's going to happen. You know, they can give you a little bit of wisdom here and there, you know, but they're not going to predict anything for you, because they can't, because every step you make, they could predict something for you, but every step that you're going to take, even just walking left when you should have stepped right, you're altering that reality just by doing that. So, you know, by the time you can walk, I mean, there's endless parallel realities there. God, I'm tongue-tied. Ugh. Yeah, there's endless parallel realities. Okay, so the eighth dimension, the cloud cities. When you start getting into the ninth dimension, that's when you start seeing souls flying around in their Merkabas, you know, their self-ascension vehicles that they've ascended into being. Basically, what they are is they're practically a living star. I mean, that you could say that totally, you know. And I'm all over the place usually. One other thing I wanted to touch on about the eighth dimensional cloud beings, though, have you ever noticed how you'll see like some kind of dragon, or maybe it's a dog, whatever, some kind of different animal floating around through the sky? It's a cloud, but it's shaped like one of those, and it's kind of floating weird. Well, what they explained to me that those were, they told me that, you know, they have their favorite animals and their favorite things too. And what they do is if they're flying around on a dog looking cloud, it's because their favorite animal might be a dog, or they might like dragons. And so they choose a dragon. They're very, you know, you get higher up there into the star realms, and they're funny. They're hilarious. It's almost too much for people that aren't awakened to handle if they were to run into it. They're funny. They're jokesters. They're loving, and they like having a good time. Now, here's the switch. When you start getting up into those angelic realms, and you can tell it with the people here that are incarnated, that are like purely 11th, 12th, and 13D, they seem very no nonsense and very serious. Oh, they're still got a great sense of humor too, and are loving and laugh, but they can come off as that they're very businesslike and down to business. Once you cross over from that 10th D into the 11th D, yeah, they're very serious and down, especially the ones that don't fluctuate out of 11 or 12 or 13D, especially the ones that don't come down, because a lot of us fluctuate between, you know, I don't know, 11 and 90, you know, 10 and 12D, whatever. But the ones that are mainly out of there, they're very no nonsense in the way they come across. Okay, they're not. You might tell them an Earth joke. You know, somebody, an entity like that who lives in those realms, actually, you might tell them some kind of a joke and they might just look at you and stare like they, you know, like a arithmetic student trying to tell a algebra professor that 1 + 1 was 2. You know, just they look at you like, you know, no comprende. It's way down beneath my level, and it's not that they're being judgmental. It's just that it's true. So that's the difference. Now, this LARCMA, this 6D collective I was talking about that I dealt with for a little bit, that oh, what is, God, I forget their name. Colin Smith, and I forget her name. Oh, I followed them for years. I own both their books. Damn it, I'm having a brain freeze. I own both the LARCMA books. They have a site on YouTube. Just type in LARCMA. It's LAARKMAA. Well, these 6-dimensional beings, you know, I just dealt with them for a little while, but these two have had them in their life forever, and I guess they've even gone so far as to mess around with them and rearrange their furniture. No joke, and I believe it. You know what I mean? They subtle things like they would swap one small sofa sectional out, or they'd move it to the other side of the room, I guess, and then whatever was on the other side of the room, they'd move over there. They'd come home and have that done. And I believe they would do that. Yeah. It sounds like something hilarious they would do. Yeah. But it's really amazing. And that's not to say, look, I'm not putting it in a box like there's only 13 dimensions, because there's not, because they're endless. And then each dimension has endless parallel realities, you know, flaking off of that. You know, every parallel reality has different dimensions flaking off of it. So, I mean, it's infinite. And the more that our brain, the more we use that 90% of the brain, you know, 10 to 15% now, but soon it'll be 20. Slowly. And then you're going to absorb the intelligence you get from that. Then it'll go, you know, eventually mankind will go up to 25 to 30 and so on. But it would totally break your mind in a second if you could use all of your brain right now, because you would remember everything that you ever did, and every little reality you'd ever been in, the endless ones, would all come together and collide at one moment. It would all collide in 1 second. And, you know, I mean, it would just be, you'd probably melt. You know what I mean? So it's got to be done a little bit slower than that. But this is the key too. The more we awaken, the more our brain awakens, the more and more we progress up that ladder as we wind on down the road, like Led Zeppelin would say in Stairway to Heaven. The more we awaken to the fact that one day we awaken and we're all just one body. We're all just one. Imagine that. No, I mean, slowly imagine that awakening in every kind of a soul like us in the entire existence of creation. Now is completely awakened. It's just, we realize, hey, we're just one person. We were just one thought. We were just a thought. That's it. We were just a thought in the wind. You know what I mean? It's the most simple. It's the most simple thing that could ever be. Yet it's the most complex thing that could ever be, because we don't know what we know. You know, they say we don't know what we don't know. Well, we just don't know what we know yet, and slowly we're learning it. But I don't think I'm gonna, you know, I really appreciate people listening. I'm really rusty. I had taken 5 years off from doing any podcasting, anything. A little bit about myself before I started this channel on my own. I did, if any of you have ever heard of, and he was big time back then, man, he was huge in the Starseed movement in the early part of the first decade and through the middle part of the last decade. Greg Prescott, N5D Radio, man, like, you know, 500,000 people like his page. And man, I used to be on N5D Radio. I did a show called The Cosmic Awakening. I co-hosted it with Michelle Walling, which was his girlfriend at the time. I met her, but it's funny. I'd been listening to Greg for like 3 years. I was like, man, it'd be cool to meet that dude and everything. One night, you know, early 2000, when was it, 12 or something? I was on the internet and talking in one of the groups, and this girl, we were talking back and forth, and she's all, you know, I brought up Greg and I brought up N5D and how I loved his work on the Indigo Children. And she's all, you know, he's my boyfriend, right? And, you know, and I'm like thinking, oh, yeah, right. You know, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I even typed it back to her. I said, yeah, right. nicely, but I was thinking, yeah, right. Fuck, give me a break. It's exactly what I thought. Well, it turns out it was. Her and I started talking a lot, and Greg wanted to have another show on N5D and call it the Cosmic Awakening. So we did it, for about a year or so. And in the meantime, I had been doing my own thing on the side, starting this network up. Okay. And so what I did is, and I did interview, a handful or so of people that have been on Coast to Coast a few times, but mainly what I would do is I started up, the Pleiadians guided me to start up all these groups. I started all these Pleiadian groups, a few Arcturian groups, Andromeda, whatever. And I would get people to come on air with me. I'd say, hey, you want to come on air and tell your story? You don't have to be famous. You're just as good as anybody else. Come on, let me interview you about your thing. So I love doing that. I love being a conduitive. My story about my contacts with the Pleiadians, yeah, they're vast. And my story is very funny how it occurred. It was a weird, I'll just tell you this much. It involved my mother-in-law staying over for the weekend. We were all going to, stay up late and play some Monopoly. Man, I got a migraine headache about 9:45 at night when, we were just starting. It was bad. And I'm like, I had to go to bed. So I went to bed, and I was into politics really heavy back then. And I used to listen to a station out of San Francisco that I could pick up at night. Well, it was off the air that night. They were working on their tower or something. And I turned it, and, okay, it was, I can't stand Coast to Coast. It's such a corporate joke. But, I flipped it over to Coast. I was tuning around, and that was the only thing on. And they were talking about, that thing in the 40s where, the Greys gave technology to Eisenhower and the U.S. Army. And they had mentioned the word Pleiadians, because they said, well, and this group called the Pleiadians offered them, cures for every disease and everything, but they just wanted all the nuclear weapons to be dismantled from Earth. And, of course, our government wasn't willing to go along with it. That was the story. But it was just them mentioning the Pleiadians briefly. And you know what? I didn't think anything of it, except, usually when I get, because I've got autism, when I get fixated on a word or something, I get fixated. I'm like, wow, what is that? But I couldn't get it off my mind, yet it wasn't something that sounded that interesting. It was weird. So there's no coincidences, but the perceived coincidences that happened to me from that point on, in the next days to come, man, I mean, between the visits from stars, between the visits from ships outside of my house and cloaking, and between things I was just guided to accidentally find on the internet, and then a few of those things were very key, resonating with me, and I could never find them again searching for them. So that's it. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. But you can hear about that if you ever want to hear my story. There's a playlist on there on my channel where I had this girl named Bridget Rao who, was really interested in my work. And, she searched me when she started awakening, and she did a lot of shows for me. She actually ran the network for about 6 months when I just needed a break. Man, the girl she's blown up now. She's got like 15,000 subscribers. She does a show called a channel called Divine Essentials. But yeah, she was great. Anyway, she interviewed when she first got that show, her first interview was me. She interviewed me about my contacts with the Pleiadians. And then I interviewed her on my channel, this one, about her contacts with the Pleiadians. And they're very similar in a way. I mean, she's a total Pleiadian, a cool, really intelligent, kind of spazzy one, but, she's a great little sister. And so there's a playlist where, both interviews are there. But generally, I just like hearing other people's stories. That's what I'm saying. If anybody's hearing this, look, and you've got a story to tell, it's important, because we're all part of this one body. You know what I mean? If you've had some experiences or you've had some thoughts, you're as important as anybody you've ever heard. And don't you ever forget that about yourself. I mean that. That's what I'm saying is I love seeing people shine, bringing them on air, getting them out of their bubble, talking about their experiences. And then afterwards, once the show's done filtering and ready to be, passed out, you know, promoting them for a while, promoting them because of that show, you know, sharing it everywhere, bumping the post on Facebook with information about them, you know, like you may come on and do a show with me. So say when we're done, I'm going to post that to a bunch of groups, right? Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get whatever information you gave me, like your, an internet address, your Twitter account. Twitter, I don't do Twitter. I don't like Twitter. I don't really care for Elon Musk, but we won't get into that. But your Instagram, your TikTok, and I kind of have a problem with TikTok, but I had to do it because it's kind of the wave of the future. But I would promote that by putting it in the comments section of that show that I had posted. You get what I'm saying? And that way it bumps it and you get a little bit of notoriety. So if I can help anybody just, you know, get a step ahead, that's what I'm here for. You know, I'm not about the ratings. I'm not about any of that. My only ego is, hell, if one person, and, you know, people say this is a cliche, but if one person hears one of my shows, I don't care. Because, you know, I don't get a lot of viewers yet anymore. But man, there was a time I get thousands. I mean, like 16,000 on one show that Bridget and I did about Blu-rays. And the audio is kind of scratchy in parts of it too. So I don't know why people say through it. But yeah, so, you know, if you're interested in that, you can look me up on Facebook. You can message me on Facebook. You can email me at lockenlarry@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok at I'm Rocken Locken on one of them, and I'm Rocken Larry Locken on the other one. I think I'm Rocken Locken on TikTok. That's me. And I'm Rocken Larry Locken on Instagram. And, you know, and and I'm not trying to judge people. It's not about judging people that use X or Twitter. It's just for me, the energy of it, I can't handle. And I don't know why. And that may be my issue. So don't take me wrong. I'm not bashing you if you use that platform. You do what you think. I mean, for instance, I just used this thing that both my ex-wife and my grandma were both obsessed with, Pinterest, because they like to get recipes and shit off of it, right? Well, you know, I went on there the other day and started a Pinterest account, and I took one of David Starr's, one of his posts, and I posted it there to kind of promote him, and I was joking with him, telling him that, yeah, man, I have really broadened my horizons, and I joined the wonderful social platform of Pinterest, and, you know, hopefully we can get you seen over there. But anyway, this has been Rocken Larry Locken for Pleiadian Express Productions. You know, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me at those places I mentioned. Pleiadian Light Grid Project. It's another channel. And then, of course, the Arcturian Crystalline Grid YouTube channel only has one show and 3 channelings, but the page has like 10,000 likes. So, and it would have more. Here's the last thing I'm going to close on. About a month ago, I got all 20 of my Facebook pages back. A year and a half ago, Facebook informs me they're shutting them all down, pending an investigation over a copyright issue. They would never give me any details. Of course, you can't get a hold of a motherfucker. Sorry for my language. You couldn't get a hold of anybody at Facebook if you were dying. They just don't have, that's just not what they do. So I never knew what it was about. I wasn't, I had kind of gotten out of it at the time then. And, once I got back into it, I'd kissed them goodbye. I knew I would never, it wasn't even a thought. I knew it was just a done deal. And then all of a sudden I got a message from some AI telling me that, the issue has been resolved. I mean, they really weren't even elaborate at all. Now you got, but we can all rest safe because we got Meta Al. We got good old Meta Al controlling our search engines and stuff. And, he's such a nice guy. He never has an answer for you. He's just all, gosh, shucks. I'm so sorry. I just don't know. Oh, poor little guy. He don't know. He's just a good old boiled Al. Yeah. I just love him. I love how he makes everything slow to a crawl when you really need something. And I love how he just doesn't seem to really know. But that's my little rant. Oh, well, you got to love 3D World. This has been Rocken Larry Locken for Pleiadian Expressions. wherever you are in creation. Have a good evening, a good night, a good existence. And I'm out. Namaste. Oh, there's 3 people in. Hey, everybody. How are you? See, you know, I haven't done one of these in a long time, so I got all keyed up. I mean, I haven't had a guest on in 5 years. I've been doing some side talks the last couple of months, but I was so nervous and I got so wound up before we came on air. And then I kind of calmed down a little bit, but now once you get that keyed up, it takes a while to come back down. You know, I don't usually do this, but I'm probably going to have to end up getting into the Tylenol PM and the melatonin. But I think I'll calm down a little bit after we're out of here. Somebody's in here. Somebody is giving me, and I don't know who it is, and they may not even know they're doing it. Somebody watching this though right now is giving me some calming energy. Somebody is either purposely doing it or their guides are having them do that for me. Because it's not coming from my guides. I know the difference. Yeah, besides my direct guides are like my buddies. They really, in a loving way, they'd probably tell me to get over it. No, they wouldn't do that. But when I get calming healing, it comes from a little higher above. Then, I mean, they can calm me too. What am I saying? The green orbs are wonderful for healing. The blue orbs calm me down. The green ones heal, but yeah, this is like bigger. Okay, this is good. I'm good, everybody. Like I said, I'll say it one more time. Don't even hesitate. If you want to be interviewed, come on air. We'll do it. It's just, I don't show my face. I do. I show my face sometimes. The reason I don't do that much is because I like the guests to be featured. And what would happen is, it seems like, although I might be able to do it now, back when we used to do the shows from, until I quit doing them on a regular basis until the late part of the last decade, right? You'd have to do it through Google Hangout. You'd have to feed, it didn't go straight right through YouTube. You had to feed it into YouTube through Google Hangout to do one of these. And if you had more than one person at a time on camera going back and forth, especially if there were more in different places, it wreaked havoc on the, everything would cut out. It really made for a nightmare. So plus I grew up on talk radio. I grew up on AM radio before the internet, as a little boy in the 80s, messing around out here in Oregon, trying to get stations from up in Canada, down in Mexico, as far out east as where Denise lives in the Rockies. So, I kind of like that. It leaves a little bit of to the imagination. Well, no, I don't give a shit about showing my face. Fuck, man, I'm ugly as hell as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, there's plenty of videos of me on Facebook with me acting stupid, with my face. Like I did one, I had never done a Facebook Live ever until about 2.5 weeks ago. I did one, and my guides came to me and said, why don't you just go on and talk about nothing? Why don't you say that, the topic today is nothing. You're just going to talk about nothing. Well, I did that all right. And I proceeded to go into all kinds of things, the history of books, or different books throughout history. Even I got into telling everybody about the history of satellite dishes, the big ones, how they were invented, when they were invented, what year they came out. And I'm autistic, so I know all this shit. But look, I could keep rambling on. I can only imagine. I wouldn't want to put any money on it because I don't bet there'll be a lot of people that listen to this and think, what a blithering idiot. Man, that guy don't ever shut up. He just goes on and on and on. Yeah, I have a habit of doing that when it's just me talking, or if I'm chatting with you in private on a type. But if you're voice talking to me in any way, shape, or form, whether you're a guest or whether we're on the phone or whether we would be having a voice chat over Facebook, I'm really quiet and subdued for the most part. I really am. It's just that because of my autism, and I don't mean to blame it on that, but when I was finally diagnosed with it as an adult after 5 psychologists or five psychiatrists, not psychologists, and 24 hours total of 6 individual 4-hour sessions of testing, different kinds of tests and questions. And, you know, it was determined, yes, I do have autism. And it explained a lot. You know, I think a lot of starseeds have it. Denise was referring to it a little bit about the math, not getting it because it's too simple. Yeah. You know, I can't, hey, look, if I like something, I know every damn thing about it. When I was 7 years old, I had the whole history of the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball for the last 40 years, well, football 25, about the last 30 years before that. Who won each title that year, what the score was, who the loser was, who the MVP was. I also had an obsession with Canada. By the time I was 8, I knew every province, every city, what the biggest city was among the big cities, you know, all that crap. But if it's something that I have to study for, I'll never get it. You know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of you can probably relate to this too, you know. You can relate to that. You know, if you're into something, you go, it's all or nothing. But if not, man, you've got to study for it. You're reading it 5 to 20 times over to get it. It just doesn't. It's like when Denise was talking a little bit about the Bible earlier. You know, she's like, I don't want to go, don't go there tonight. And, you know, it's like, yeah, I could go there, you know, but it's one of them things too that let's even pretend for a second the Bible was this totally legit thing, right? Well, the way it's written needs a major fucking update, man. Whereas, therefore, hereby, therefore. I mean, that's all it is. It's fables and riddles and shit over and over again. And when it's not that, it's talking about, you know, women are sinners because they bleed during their menstruation and shit, and a woman ate a goddamn apple, so, you know, she sinned and all that bullshit. But, you know, I can't think of a more misogynistic goddamn book in my life. I mean, my God. That there in a nutshell is the whole problem with existence in 3D anywhere, right there. I mean, think about it, and I'm dead serious when I say this. Women on average, I think that on average, they're about 10 to 15 points smarter than men IQ-wise, but that isn't even the gist of it. The gist of it is, though, they're about 20 times more in tune with emotions and feelings within them. That when a woman learns how to harness that right, there ain't a man alive that can keep up with her in the brain. I'm telling you, son, it just ain't possible. Ain't gonna happen. And you know what? And there's bad and good in every gender, okay? But let's get real. If women had been like in key leadership roles over the last, say, since the Industrial Revolution started 150 years ago, 100 years ago, whenever, I really feel like at this point, because of everything that would have happened and, you know, what that would have happened to and led to happen to, I think that we'd probably be about 75 years ahead of where we are. You know, I really do. I think that socially and technologically even. And you know what? And it just makes me cry sometimes because I used to march. Man, I've marched for, I'm not going to get into the abortion thing, but I've marched time and time again when I was into politics for women's rights. And once in a while, I'll hear a woman say that, yeah, I think only men should be in executive positions or leadership positions because, you know, women can get emotional at a key time. You know, that's bullshit. It just feeds into this fucking egotistical male bullshit, right? Oh yeah, because this brilliant, smart woman who's worked her ass off her whole fucking life, went through school, did all this. Yeah, you know, if she's faced with a key executive decision she's got to make, or even a key political decision that's going to affect the nation or whatever, oh, because she's menstruating, she's gonna fuck it up, and she just is not going to be able to handle it. You know, even though she's had to work her ass off harder than any man her whole life, you know, she's going to blow it because she's having a bad day. Give me a fucking break. I mean, it's such bullshit. It really is. It's sickening. You know, and these men that force their women, you know, these women that'll, you know, I'm not trying to advocate voting, but they'll go out and vote the way their husbands want them to because their husband. Dude, men don't know shit. I'm telling you, ladies, we don't know jack fucking shit. The only ones of us that do, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but, you know, starseed dudes like me and the other, you know, starseed homies most of us know, males, you know, most men only get about, you know, 3/20ths of the spectrum. You know, us starseed dudes are, you know, we probably get about 8 or 9th of it, 20 of it, whereas you ladies get, you know, between 15, 16 and, you know, 20 to 20th of it. Yeah, men are just, yeah, they're just, there's just nothing up there really, to be honest with you, with a lot of them. As far as emotions go, and as far as, I can't say that. A lot of them are brilliant. I'm not talking, there's a lot of brilliant male doctors and lawyers. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about on a consciousness level, though. They just, and the sad thing about a lot of women is they've been beaten down their whole life, and they don't, some of them don't realize how super conscious they are. And you get to talking to them and you realize that they are. And you're like, man, I've ran into those situations, and I think to myself, are you putting me on when you say you don't know about any of this stuff? Because you sound like you naturally do when you talk. Maybe no, and probably it's because no man in their life, whether it's a father, a boyfriend, whatever, a brother, none of them have been more awake than out of a, you know, a stumbling dream. And so they weren't able to notice that and give the young lady, and, you know, as she got older, even kudos for that. It's just really a crazy scenario. But I think that finally we're starting to embrace the divine feminine. You know, hey, better late than never, right? And I think it's a good thing, you know. See, where I have a problem with, I'm kind of at the opposite end. I've had a couple of sisters tell me, you know, of the divine feminine. They're like, you know, hey, you can't just go all feminine on me. We need you to be a little bit masculine. Can you step up a little? I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that. I can't let them do anything for me. I could be going and making them a snack and stuff. I can't let them wait on me or anything. Yeah, so I don't know. But with that, look, I'm going to quit rambling on and on. Or am I? I mean, how in the hell long have we been on here? See, this is one thing I would always say too, is that we don't exist in time, and it's really real. When we get on this show, especially on, you know, this network here, I call it a network. Listen, meeting shit. You know, I mean, it's got 2,000 subscribers. I got 2 people that I groomed. One has 15,000. The other one I don't talk to. He's a fruitcake. I'm not going to tell you who he is. Some of you probably know who he is. He's got about 25,000 subscribers. I'll just do a quick imitation of him, see if anybody. But yeah, I groomed this kid, and then he kind of went shitty on me. ACOA, the alien contactee. Okay, well, trust me, if you've never heard that before, you're lucky. You don't need to hear it. But if you have, you're going to know who the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, he's one of those freedom fighter starseeds, you know, that always wants to tear the system down like we do too. We just want to bust it and ascend to a new one. They don't want that, because what's going to happen to people like that is they're going to get bored. You know, okay, see, I would always ask him, I'd say, yeah, dude, what are you going to do the day after? What are you going to do the day after you tore it all down? How are you going to keep things going? How are you going to keep social programs going? This, that, everything. You know, I understand myself. I see above that. I understand to trust in the process, you know, to trust in the process, you know, trust the process that it's going to work through. But for people like that, I'll ask that question too, because they don't think about it. And, you know, they're going to be bored without that drama. That's why you'll notice a lot of Americans specifically, it's all over the world, but a lot of Americans in a certain generation, I'm not talking about the young millennials, they're different. They're telepathic and shit. They're just different. I'm talking about people from about the age now of about, and they've grown out of it now. People people they're say in their early 30s now into about their mid 40s. There are a lot of people in that particular time frame that they really, and I think it's because of some kind of a control that was put over them. They're really into drama, and when there's no drama going on, you can almost see them having like heroin withdrawals. Man, they don't like it, and they can't go very long without it. If everything's cool for a while, they've got to start some shit, and it can be just the littlest thing. And every time I've ever thought it was just in my head, I'd see example after example after example, and I'd hear about from buddies of mine, or, you know, girlfriends of mine, example after example after example. So, and, you know, But that somehow was some kind of an American thing that happened. That isn't really the case for that age range in other countries, like, you know, countries like us, like Canada, Australia, and Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, you know, the UK, you name it, Ireland, Scotland, I could go on. You know, it was some kind of control. Now I'm getting all conspiracy theory on everybody, and that's not who I am. I'm not like that, because most conspiracy theorists, the big time conspiracy theorists you'll hear, like Alex Jones and shit, and you can take this how you want it. They talk about the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Bilderberg Group, all this shit, right? All that shit exists. Oh, don't get me wrong, that shit exists. But usually the people that are warning and saying that this side is behind those guys, those are usually the guys that are really are the minions for the fucking Bilderberg Group and people like that. The people that are bitching about the New World Order, there already is kind of a New World Order. You know, several families that are really, really high up and wealthy, they run the world through innuendos and shit, you know, and business deals and stuff like that. But I'll tell you the one thing those people don't want. They definitely don't want a one world government. But it's not because of the fear that they give to people. They make people think we're going to have one world government and it's going to be all under one control. Hey, that would work on a country. Might even work on a continent. That theory would not work on a fucking planet of people. That diverse, that much ground to cover, that many weapons out there, no way. They don't want a one world government because it would unite the goddamn planet. But this theory that, you know, it's going to be one leader of the whole planet, nuh-uh, ain't going to work. Hitler couldn't even have done it if nobody would have fought him off. No way. A country, yes. Continent, maybe. Not the fucking earth. So these people that bitch about a one world government, they don't want one because they don't want to lose all their control. Because if everybody came together and had nothing left to lose, what the fuck would they do? You know what I mean? They don't want that. Think about this. Think about even if you had 1 million people controlling the earth, and those 1 million people even had all the weaponry, but then you had 1 billion people, they'd get overran, and they don't want that. So, you hear somebody like Alex Jones talking about the globalist and the New World Order and, all this fucking bullshit. Well, yeah, he's working for them. He's projecting. It's called project and deflect. You know what I mean? Project and deflect and reflect. You blame the other side of bombastic shit that you're doing, but exaggerating a little bit. Yep. And I'm out, I know it's my bedtime when I start talking about that fruitcake. All right. And we're out. Rocken Larry Locken, namaste. Now I got to figure out how to shut this down. God, I had this problem the other night. The older I get, the lamer in the brain I get. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for that last listener that's listening. All my love, my friend, my soul family. Come on, go off. Come on, baby, go off. Go off. What the hell, dude? Are you serious? It's the thing that wouldn't turn off. Oh no, it's a late night horror movie. The thing that wouldn't shut off. It's AI. Which AI would be good if it had loving, honest people controlling it. It would take our country ahead 100 years in 10. But when you have devious people control it, it's another thing. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, here's this.